here we have this one situation where enormous entities want to use the internet for their purpose to save money for doing what they're doing now. They use FedEx. They use the delivery services. They use the mail. They deliver in other ways, but they want to deliver vast amounts of information over the internet. And again, the internet is not something that you just dump something on. It's not a big truck. It's a series of tubes. And if you don't understand, those tubes can be filled, and if they're filled, when you put your message in, it gets in line, it's going to be delayed by anyone that puts into that tube enormous amounts of material.
She's killed hundreds of thousands of people with her stupidity.
I'm bored. Let's do something else.
I got this book. My dad gave it to me.
Sounds as though the rapper is attempting to put an end.
Good evening and welcome to the Thursday edition of The Swamp. I'm having a mic issue here, Kevin.
You sound fantastic,
Well,
Pat.
it sounds great, but it's just not fitting in my face quite right. So if you detect a problem,
Maybe a feedback.
I'm sort of jumping into the show a little bit off my center, off my game here. I'm feeling better now, but now the little arm is like right between me and you, so that's sort of going to bother me.
Well, I don't like to make eye contact with you so much. You know, it's creepy.
Really?
No, it's fine.
You're okay.
All right.
So, thank you for joining us for this episode 10 of The Swamp. This is the the election integrity edition, and there is this is like crazy, right? All sorts of miracles taking place that you're going to hear about during this particular episode. And I'm not kidding. Kevin, have some of the things that I've described to you earlier throughout the week, would you say some of these things just sort of almost rise to the level of being almost a miracle? And I'm not joking around.
I'm beyond impressed with the things that have happened this week. I honestly don't even know where to begin. There's so many things that happen that I said it before. I'll say it again. You're like a wizard with this stuff, you know.
But I didn't even try to do this, right? I could never have planned any of this out. How could I have ever known when I stood in front of Publix collecting 2,312 petitions to get my name on the ballot, right? How could I have ever known that 10 years later, on the ballot, because I wanted to change and help fix a problem I saw with the integrity of the election process. We had, I ran against a guy who was a 26-year incumbent, a 6-term incumbent, election supervisor. He was a Democrat, switched midterm to the Republican Party in his last term.
Is that like a death sentence?
No, he did just fine.
Yeah.
But, so I ran against this guy. I want to tell the story a little bit more, but I want to just let people understand that I went from this pillar of integrity, right, of election integrity, to, and this is the crazy part, have actually a legitimate argument backed up by other reports, credible reports, credible watchdog groups, and my own evidence as well, that software I developed for the Department of Defense while working for a company called Dynology was actually potentially used to facilitate the altering of the outcome of both the 2010 Ukrainian election and the 2016 presidential election. And if people are sitting there saying, okay, this guy's crazy, he's got the tin hat on, well, everything that I'm saying is totally verifiable. I got my book coming out. In fact, Kevin's sister is helping edit it. which is
allegedly.
No, well, she absolutely is.
Allegedly.
And she's awesome. Unlike Kevin allegedly is. No, but everything's verifiable through there. So what we have is a situation where potentially a guy who runs for elected office on an integrity because of the integrity of the election process, and then he ends up having software
that eventually was used.
He ends up having software that was used to alter the outcome of the Ukrainian election. Now, to support that, and to say that before this actually was in the making, this particular episode was in the making for several days, maybe even to last week. We didn't even do an episode last week because we went and visited a friend of Kevin's of Kevin's show, Mr. Glick.
Glick Chris, yeah.
All right,
Yeah,
so
very,
and that
very
was
nice
that
guy.
was fun. That was nice.
At the Sheridan in Tampa,
yeah.
beautiful.
And
hotel.
Glick's even checked out some of my stuff, so that's awesome.
Pretty cool.
But we also had some work to do to be able to put this episode together. And then, funny as it was, we're doing an episode basically which revolves around the integrity of the election process. And President Trump releases a memorandum, an executive order, I believe, today, focusing on election integrity. Now, I haven't even read a word of it. This tonight is not going to be a discussion about his executive order. I'm going to read that tonight, late, and tomorrow, and I'm going to probably get back with some opinions on that, maybe for next week's episode. But tonight it's just like, wow, just another amazing thing that this has been my push, my issue. How I ever went from running for Pasco County Supervisor of Elections to making social media cyber warfare applications for the Department of Defense. No, I'm not giving out anything classified. Not discussing, won't discuss anything classified. This software that we used, that we developed for the Department of Defense, it's on my resume, and Dynology put my resume out to all sorts of people and approved that and authorized that. Things you can't talk about are what we would ever potentially do with that software, or any dissemination process, or anything like that we might ever potentially do or not do or do. What we did do, though, this could be just as easily used for the PAO. This could be used for a lot of different things. All right, this software could be used to change the hearts and minds of two warring factions that have been fighting for a couple thousand years. It could help move milk off the shelf at Publix, right? So it doesn't go bad. Social media, psychological warfare. It doesn't have to be like a bad thing where you're killing people or be used for bad. It could be used to help police departments collect child predators.
But
yes.
why the moniker or name of warfare at the end of that?
Well, they actually sort of changed that to psychological operations.
That's a lot better. Yeah.
All right, so okay, let's do that. PSYOP, psychological. I usually put psychological operations. Right. So, we have this PSYOP tool that I helped develop on contract. It was you can you can do a Freedom of Information, get the contract. It's going to have the basics on it. It was in support of what's called IIA, Interactive Internet Activities, I/O, Information Operations. Now, like I said, this software could be used for a lot of different things. It could also, if in the wrong hands, be used to alter the outcome of a presidential election,
And
if you wanted
perhaps
to.
The Ukraine
Right?
movie.
And let me explain this in the most, and I really have a simple way of doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Paul Manafort and some others have been accused, who are associated with Trump, President Trump, have been accused of messing with the elections through cyber, even potentially in coordination with the Russians. Although I really don't think the Russians had anything to do with any of this. I did another episode on that. So you have that. Now, the only way that these people who are being accused of doing something could have ever done what they're accused of would be using, with the use of a similar type of program management tool that's designed specifically and tested for social media psychological warfare, right?
Now, who's capable of doing that?
Who?
Yeah.
Well, you got to figure you can't just call up the Geek Squad and have them come and install it at your home, right? You need something that's been tested, built out and tested. It needs to have capabilities that have been tested against some of the best defenses out there. And not just defenses, but the best detection out there. So I can make it look like I'm sending an email from anywhere on the planet, from the Kremlin if I wanted to, and there's nobody on the planet that could prove otherwise with any reasonable amount of... Yes, sir, in the back.
I was wondering
with
if
his hand up.
Hillary Clinton's whole structure of her personal servers was so remedial that, I don't know.
She violated every possible rule in the book, right? Yeah. By doing that. It was so remedial, it's not even funny. John Podesta, he used a Gmail account. He just went and then used password for the password. So you have people that violate ethics and that violate the rules, and then those little simple rule violations end up jeopardizing national security. Is that sort of where you were going with that? Or not at all?
Not at all. I was thinking of cartoons, and could not make the exact parallel with where I was going. But,
we can frame this as a cartoon later.
That's a great idea.
I'll work on that one.
Thanks.
So you have this swamp that Trump likes to call it, right? And you can't believe or trust anything that you read or say. There are so many countries out there right now, besides Russia. You've got the UK, you've got Israel, you've got Iran, you've got the Syrian Electronic Army. You got all these people that are trying to influence our elections. Other people like UK don't want to just influence our elections. They want to influence certain geopolitical positions we might take. Well, fine. They still end up doing that by influencing our elections. There are other players out there that I believe are doing even more nefarious things, and there's a lot of evidence to support it, like stirring up riots and stuff like that, trying to destabilize our country. But the focus tonight was just on the integrity of the election process. Because when I ran for office back in 2004, I really wanted to make a difference. And I tried. I put in a lot of effort off it. I got off my couch. I didn't just sit on Twitter and tweet. I got off my couch. I got off my butt. I put in effort. And I tried to bring attention to it thing. Now, on top of the election process and the integrity of the election process, I wanted to also try to save our county like $7 million because they wanted to go and purchase these touchscreen voting machines that looked great. They had flashy, blinky lights on them, but they were really expensive, and they didn't provide a paper trail, and they didn't provide this, what I felt would be sufficient security. But the person that I was running against wanted to have our county invest like $7 million. Now, that was for the touchscreen voting machines. This guy's name was Kurt Browning. I was more interested in the optical scanning systems, right? So I wanted to make a difference, and I pushed people. I went to a town hall. I tried to say, listen, this is a waste of money. These optical scanning systems, you only put one in each precinct instead of 25 in each precinct. These are like $7,000 a piece, the ones that Browning wanted to do, and you got to put like 25 or 50 of them in each precinct, depending on the size. So, so many different aspects of this that were just much more sound. But no, they had to do that. So I did everything I could. I lost the election. Browning wins. He gets his touchscreen voting machines. The whole state of Florida. He advocated them across the state of Florida. And $60-70 million was spent statewide on touchscreen voting machines. He wins the election. He's then, very shortly after that, tapped by the new Governor Christ as the Secretary of State of Florida. And then right after that, he turns around as Secretary of State and bans touchscreen voting machines. These voting machines were turned around, and the offer for $1 a piece to purchase back from all the Florida counties was made by the voting machine companies that just sold them to them for $7,000 a piece. Some just a year or so earlier. Many of them still had money owed on them. And they were now banned by Kurt Browning, the guy who advocated for these touchscreen voting machines across the entire state, costing the state millions. They ended up, many of these touchscreen voting machines ended up going into recycling bins, parted for parts and sold for pennies on the dollar. And many of those, like something like I think the Tampa Tribune wrote that something like $30+ million of these, $30+ million was still owed on machines that were shredded and recycled. Terrible loss. I tried to make a difference, but the swamp beat me out, right? And when you have the swamp, you'll see the picture associated that I put on there. The swamp includes mainstream media. Everything Trump's saying now and learned now in his first run for election, I learned in 2004. I was blocked out by everybody. I should have been, my name was on that ballot right next to Kurt Browning's. But he got so much attention. He was like the belle of the ball. He was getting nationwide attention for this stupid little supervisor of elections position in Pasco County, Florida. And I didn't really even stand a chance. I still ended up with like 18% of the vote, which is really good for running with no political affiliation. I didn't take money from Democrats or anything because I felt that the integrity of the election process becomes jeopardized when you have partisan election officials, the people who count the vote. I called it the Uday and Kusei factor. You can't have the people counting the votes actually be the ones who have partisan affiliations. So I tried to lead by example there. Even though I didn't lead, I led from behind, failed. My point was made when millions and millions of dollars of those were turned around and made and banned in the state of Florida by the very guy I ran against who advocated for him. Points have been made, but I failed. So I wanted to still make a difference. So I enlisted in the Army at the age of 40, right? Go from that election integrity thing to let's go into the Army. Very patriotic. I had a wife, 2 kids. I had a good good life. Gave all that up. Went in the Army. Did my time there. Brought a pretty strong IT background, IT security background to the table for the Army. I had some things to offer. Not a lot for my run time. Not a lot of push-ups and sit-ups to offer. I wasn't the PT stud that Kevin is. But, I had something to bring to the table. You were going to make a comment about you being a PT stud. I had to...
Comparably, it's true, yeah.
Okay, comparably. You are. So I do all of that. I work tip of the spear in Afghanistan in uniform, doing amazing things, intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance. I was really part of something great. Finished my time my required time in service and through active duty and such. Needed work because I had lost my job. My previous employer had terminated me when I enlisted at 40. I was the first 40-year-old to complete basic training in the history of Fort Benning, Kevin. At least
I heard it's a resort town.
That's what they told me.
I heard it was like a vacation there.
It is. It's vacation time. I had my 40th birthday doing the live fire low crawl with live ammunition, live 50-round ammunition with tracers being shot over my head, crawling through the Georgia mud. What did you do on your 40th birthday, Kevin?
I did a very similar thing in a paintball.
Oh, I'm sorry. That you're a decade away from that 40th birthday.
But I played rigorous paintball that same
paintball.
Weekend. Yes.
That's very similar, right? Very similar.
I believe it was airsoft.
No. Yeah. Thank you for your paintball service.
I did nothing of the sorts.
Thank you for your paintball service. So, yeah, jackass. So I was part of something really good. I go over this in the book in far more detail than I'm jumping through right now, because I somehow have to quickly tonight explain my very serious comments, my very serious statements that, like, John McCain and some other people, which are going to blow your mind, used my software that I developed for the Department of Defense while on contract for a company called Dynology to alter these elections. Because now I've sent some stuff to Kevin, sent Kevin an article earlier, and I wanted him to like verify that what I'm saying here. This is an article from, I believe, the Huffington Post, correct?
You want to go to
actually
cut
no.
one or
actually no. I'm going to go to the PR Newswire. All right, a Scission company. So the PR Newswire did a story about the headline is Election Watchdog Group supports call for independent investigation into Ukraine election results. Yanukovych campaign team tied to election rigging allegations in the United States. So where I'm going with that, and what sort of shocked me a couple days ago when I saw this, was that the company I developed these applications for was a company called Dynology. Now, I did this in like 2000. I went on board in 2007 with Dynology and did my first contract in Iraq, right? I spent a year over in Iraq. So the owner of Dynology, the president of Dynology, the guy I worked directly for on this project that I was over there, his name's Jim Jones. His dad was General James Jones, a retired four-star Marine Corps general, former NATO Supreme Allied Commander, and Obama tapped General Jones as his national security advisor. All right? So this guy had a lot of influence, and if you're looking, if someone says, okay, I believe this person rigged the election or altered, I don't say rigged, altered the outcome of the presidential election, altered the outcome of the Ukrainian election, what tools, what would you require if someone went to Paul Manafort and said, I wanted to do this? Right, you would require a certain amount of tools. You would require the software, like I mentioned earlier, that I had developed. You would require something like, almost exactly like that. It would have to have the anonymity capabilities, all of the IO and IIA capabilities that has. Right. You would also need someone to implement it. It's already been implemented, so you need just someone to set it up overnight real quick. But you would also need someone in a very high position, someone very high position within our government, someone with an intelligence background.
And now, top security clearance.
Well, sure, which obviously Obama's national security advisor is going to have, right? So why does Obama's national... This is a whole other question, and this is part of the integrity of the election process. We wouldn't be having this conversation tonight, Kevin. We wouldn't have the questions that I have tonight, which very legitimately ask some very legitimate questions. We wouldn't be having these questions if Obama's national security advisor, his son, did not own and run their company called Dynology, which was doing multi-million-dollar Department of Defense contracts. They're bidding on these contracts. I've sent you over earlier, and you have the link to this. We're putting these all together in links, and I'm going to put a link to that. But you have...
I have something about
the Marine Corps site.
Well, I have something that says... okay.
The Marine Corps login, the login page.
What I have is Yanukovych's campaign team in 2004 and 2010 included Rick Davis and Paul Manafort.
Okay.
The owners of a Washington, D.C. Lobbying PR firm called 3EDC. There's a link to the HuffPost article, but they were bragged on its website that it had 5 strategic partners.
Mm-hmm.
New Media Communications, Integrated Web Strategy, Campaign Solutions, Airnet Group, and Dynology Corporation.
Dynology Corporation.
Which was a heavily military... which has a heavily military client list. A majority of our staff hold security clearances that allow access to secret and top-secret classified government information. That's in quotes.
Now, that's
in
the
the
quotes
HuffPost.
that the HuffPost used,
Yes.
right?
Mhm.
Now, read that back, please. The quote, the description that they gave of Dynology.
Dynology Corporation, which is a heavily military client list, quote, a majority of our staff hold security clearances that allow access to secret and top-secret classified government information.
Now, if the person who wrote that article and described Dynology like that, who had written this entire article about how they believed that Davis and Manafort
Yes.
altered the outcome of these 2 elections using IIA-IO, Interactive Internet Activities, social media psychological warfare, and information operations, which would be like hacking and all sorts of other things, the more covert side of it. If they're saying that they did this, that's absolutely that company right there listed in as their strategic partner.
3EDC.
Just developed, just within over like the last year and a half or 2 years, developed the software that you would have to do that with, right? Yeah. Now, if that guy who wrote that article and gave that description understood that they weren't just that they actually had offered for commercial sale, I had to redo the slicks. Another thing that bothers the hell out of me is that the government pays a company to build a product. All right, we were paid to build a product. Not going to say what it was used for, but we were contracted. We won a bid that was publicly disclosed to build an IIA-IO product. All right, we built that. Dynology retained the rights to it and just took it with them when we lost the contract.
Do any of your old passwords work?
No.
So you could just kind of slide right in there and get all that.
So, so Dynology holds that. So our taxpayer dollars pays a company to come in and build this. Mm-hmm. All right. They don't win the next recompete bid. Somebody else comes in. Now Dynology takes that software that the taxpayers just paid them to build. Dynology takes that software with them and has me make up marketing slicks because they're now going to offer this tactical military grade psychological.
It's like giving a child up for
media,
adoption, Patrick.
Right?
It's what it is, man.
They are now taking this and they are putting it for sale on the commercial market. They had me making the slicks for it. That's why I can even talk about it, right? Because it was completely available on the commercial market. Now, why? Now, if that guy who wrote that article and described Dynology as such, if he knew that just happened, that they owned that of that list of 5 companies, what company literally had the only one capable of doing exactly what they were accusing him of doing, they might have looked at Dynology or this whole situation differently. Mm-hmm. The problem I have with this, which you haven't even mentioned yet, is that Davis Manafort have worked for years for John McCain. Now, Davis Manafort for sure, was accused in this article of supporting altering the election for pro-Putin people.
It does say that.
Yet John McCain is the most anti-Putin person on the planet. Yeah. Is he, though? I swear to God, I'm not joking about this. How could you keep friends? How could... John McCain is lifelong, last 30, 40 years, I think he was in Vietnam with General James Jones. They are lifelong friends.
Go back to 2004 and 2008.
Mm-hmm.
Rick Davis and Paul Manafort and 3EDC were managers of Yanukovych's 2004 election campaign and were key advisors in the 2010 election. They maintained a strategic partnership with both Mike Connell and Jeff Averbeck. This is all according to the Huffington Post.
Sure.
Both of whom have been accused of rigging Bush's elections.
Mm-hmm.
Accused, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Connell was killed.
Now, this is before I actually developed
this is in
this
08.
stuff. This is Pre.
Yeah, in December of 2008, a very suspicious death. Mr. Connell, that would be Mike Connell, was killed in an airplane crash after he was called to testify about the vote rigging allegations. According to an article in the February 2010 issue of the world-renowned Maxim magazine, Mr. Connell rigged the 2004 election for George Bush by creating a man-in-the-middle attack to change the results of the Ohio election results. And there's a link in this article. The attack was done through the GOP computers run by Smart Tech. For all of these reasons, Velvet Revolution, a nonpartisan election watchdog group, calls for an independent investigation and audit of the Ukrainian election, especially the tabulation of votes. So, apparently, according to Maxim magazine, this is a dead ringer, a solid here, where a guy died mysteriously because of allegations of voter fraud, basically.
Planes crash. So, you're like, oh my God.
I was shaking my head over here. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
they do.
I thought I brought something to the table here, and you're just like, planes crash.
crash.
So we'll just move on.
They do. But the problem I have with this is that these people pretty much get away with anything that they want. I ran for office to try to make a difference, all right? And everything Trump has said, he seems to get it, but I don't know if he's going to have the ability, because it seems like all the people around him. Can you trust, with John McCain's relationship to Jim Jones of Dynology, right? Can John McCain say that he doesn't know that his lifelong best friend, Obama's national security advisor, that a product that their company develops is used for social media psychological warfare? Can John McCain say that the people he hires to run his PR and stuff are so tied to pro-Putin election altering and so tied to Dynology as to list them? I'm saying so tied. That would be allegedly. It's a tie is not anything but an alleged, an allegation.
To attack me. Calm down.
Yeah,
please.
no. You're doing very good, right? You're pointing
thanks,
out we don't
I
want to
guess.
say things that we can't back up, and I'm not, right? That's how you keep safe. That's how somebody can't sue you.
You
for,
have
like,
that look in
libel,
your eye, Pat.
right?
You got the look in your eye.
Well, that's a sty in my eye, as my
Okay.
grandma would say. Must have peed in the road.
Okay, be careful on the road, man.
So you're like, where did that come from?
Well, I mean,
So, no, but
so explain John McCain's importance in this now.
well, think about his relationship with Dynology, right?
Let's think about it. Let's talk
Right?
about it.
His relationship with Dynology exists. Just the existence of it is what I can actually say. Is why I can actually say, "Hey, people, take a look at this." How can he? He says in this article. Obama's staff came to John McCain and said, "Your people are going against American policy, Obama's policy, with Ukraine, trying to put these pro-Putin people into office, into position. Would you please stop it?" Literally, these Obama people went to McCain, and McCain just puts his hands up and says, "Oh, I don't know. They're just subcontractors." That's the subcontractor swamp bullshit that you have to deal with, right? It's plausible deniability. But how can you keep denying it? How can John McCain have such a close, lifelong relationship? My boss, the president of Dynology, his first job was as an intern for John McCain in his campaign office. All right? That's how tight these people go back. So, if these people did want to do what they're accused, if these people did what they're accused of having done, they would have to use software exactly like mine. Are you telling me that they ended up shopping somewhere else to find it? So it's going to be a trail. John McCain paid $300. His campaign paid between $300,000 $500,000 for IT services from Dynology. I think when he was running against during the primaries, when he was running against Obama, right? So, and this is all published information, right? So, when he makes such a close association with that, and with Paul Manafort, and with these other people, yet sits there and cries out anti-Putin stuff all day. Do you see, like, why I have these questions? Are we just supposed to believe John McCain is that inept? He shared an office in the same building, on the same floor, the same office area, while this Ukraine thing was going on, according to this article, and still claims he had no idea of what they were doing. You think an op like that? These are multi-million-dollar ops. Let me finish here with something real quick. You were going to say something. Hold that thought. The Senate intelligence folks just said a couple days ago that Russia paid something like $200 million to mess with our elections. That's typical investment with them for our elections. And if you think that Russia, if you agree that Russia put $200 million in it, how much did China put in it? They have a higher budget for this stuff than Russia does. How much did the Ukraine? You're talking about billions and billions of dollars being put in by multiple other countries, each of them with their own different agenda, using social media, psychological warfare to try to alter the outcome of our policies and our agendas in our elections, right? So you don't want to just get stuck on Russia. You want to get and you got to ask yourself, when I say that to you, Kevin, you got to ask yourself, well, how was the election? What was the final result of the modification of the altering of the election? If everybody's doing that, because China wasn't supporting Russia, Trump. UK wasn't supporting Trump, and we know that they put tens and tens and tens of millions. GCHQ, their intelligence arm, they do. They're the British. They've tried to invade us like twice. We freaking went to war with them. You think I'm joking about this stuff? Don't trust them. The government people. You can't trust any of these governments, even if they're our friends. Israel, they're our friends. We're good people. I like Israelis, right? But they have an agenda. Obama tried to mess with their elections. They will mess with ours to their narrative, to their benefit. They do. What's the final result on this? If everybody's doing something different.
Is it stronger than social media with the people? Is social media psychological warfare stronger than social media amongst the people?
Well,
Who's got more pull?
The people are just stupid.
But
can I say that?
No, because
they are
why? Because they're being fooled
believe
by
everything that they read.
Do you really think that the software that you made and all these countries using variations of it or it itself to psychologically manipulate people's opinions through social media is stronger than the whole rest of the world on social media?
It seems to be.
I don't think it is, because if it was, Trump wouldn't be the president of the United States of America. Their poll would have been stronger, and people wouldn't have voted for a Republican.
Somebody won that battle.
Somewhere,
and so
okay,
let's say that the couple $100 million that Russia put in, let's say that Manafort was working on this to do that. Not necessarily for Trump. Let me throw a different idea out there for you. What if he was working for McCain, who hates Trump, to set Trump up for this whole Russia thing after the election in case he won?
But where did
you don't think these people think this far in advance?
Yeah.
And you don't think that these people would put this together? And if they did what I'm saying as a theory right there, you would have to have these certain things in place to be able to do it. Something that's been tried and tested that can circumvent any detection and that can run a focused campaign that's going to bring you results for your money, because these things cost a lot of money.
I just wonder, all guilt aside, who really has more pull. and how worth it is for the government of any of said countries to invest so much money, even though it's just a drop in the bucket in most budgets, especially when you're dealing with a negative budget. Is it really worth it?
Kevin, I forwarded you a snapshot of a tweet a few days ago. This lady posed the argument that if a woman is pregnant with a male,
I remember this.
that because the male has a penis inside the woman, that baby is technically raping the mother. You remember that, right? It was legitimate.
Yeah.
And even one person, another woman, followed up behind it with a thing that said, wow, I never thought about it like that. So, oh my God, this woman, there's now two people on Twitter that believe potentially if you have a little baby inside you, that you are being continuously raped, right? So if you're asking me if Twitter and social media is full of all these people who are intelligent enough not to be duped by multi-million-dollar social media psychological warfare campaigns, I'm going to say no. They're ripe for the plucking.
Sure, there's a huge target audience. Okay. But
how much of it do you have to shift to make a difference? Did I say you had to get everyone, or did I say
where
you
does the
had to
needle
get
fall? Yeah,
0.2%?
I don't know, Pat. I don't know, Pat.
There is a number for every for any problem somebody comes to me with.
We are at a moot point.
I have a number that can solve that problem.
We are at a moot point.
We're not.
I just want to say that. I love saying that.
No, we're not, because we're at a point of a miracle. Because the miracle exists now,
or a miracle?
Right? The miracle.
A miracle.
A miracle.
Miracle.
A miracle, America.
All
Right?
all
America, America.
I believe
Because
it's McDonald's.
think about this, right? I mean, I run for office. As, I run for office for election integrity. I fail. I joined the army.
Hold on. You didn't fail. You got 18% of the vote with no party affiliation.
And the state of Florida lost tens of millions of dollars.
That was
on
sweet
these
redemption
voting
on your loss.
And, oh my
Sweet
God.
victory, not a fail. Sweet victory, not a fail. That's what I'm trying to say.
As a taxpayer, I even
you're
lost
killed.
in Pasco. Every aspect of it, I
You're
failed.
killing yourself over it, Pat Berge.
Right?
You need to just not say that you failed.
So, but I was there. Failure's fine.
But you maybe being a little too hard on yourself, man.
Well, no, you got to be hard on yourself.
Not
And
that
failure is fine. You learn from it, right? It was a learning experience, although
you
I
could
don't know
paint
what I
a little
learned
bit
from
more
that.
positive of a picture when describing what happened.
Okay,
I'm just
I was
saying.
thinking unicorns and butterflies.
Okay,
Great,
I'm not a
I
hippie.
lost.
I'm not a hippie, man.
It was the best loss
Okay.
ever.
You just grew a beard. Just
You're
now.
right.
You did. You grew a beard when you said that. Holy crap.
The best loss ever. And so I moved on from that.
Apparently not,
but still
okay,
had a
sure.
very patriotic bug up my ass. Join the army, do what I can there, and then get out and end up making software applications for a company that is accused in this Huffington Post article, in that other article by the Ukrainian election results, by that whistleblowers, as being suspected of using the software that I developed to alter the outcome of the 2016 presidential election and the 2010. So you got this, and now I'm like right in the middle of this, going, holy crap! My very nature tells me that this is like so wrong. Every aspect of it's wrong, and I'm not going to stand around and just not. Clearly, I'm not the nature. It's not my nature to sit around and not do something or not say something. It's utterly ridiculous that Obama's national security advisor is allowed to win contracts for the Department of Defense for his company by his son, especially contracts like cyber warfare. I wonder who asked for that. Who asked for that contract that I went out on that ended up getting put out on a bid and that we ended up winning? And how did we ever end up winning it when we were in a position like that?
That's classified.
Who asked for? How did the United States Marine Corps website, which is a government organization, how did their portal end up being won by the former 4-star Marine Corps general, retired NATO's Supreme Allied Commander, and Obama's National Security Advisor? How did his company, his son, get that contract when other people, companies sometimes spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to put together proposals for bids like this? Imagine spending $250,000 to put together a proposal for a bid that you lost and then later found out you lost it to Obama's National Security Advisor. You think you would be a little upset and you've lost a couple $100,000 here, maybe that there was something inappropriate? Absolutely, right?
Yeah.
And then to keep that software that you developed, to be able to turn around and sell it commercially to continue to make money off it. Oh, and by the way, if it happens to be the case, if it happens to be discovered that they turned around and made money off it by altering the outcome of a presidential election in the U.S. in 2016, then, oh my God, altering it in any way, right? If these people were involved in doing that, and if people understood how this private company and Paul Manafort and the Davis and General Jones and John McCain, how they all grouped together and worked together, I would be nervous as hell if I was Donald Trump, because I don't know how well Trump knew Manafort before he came on. I don't think he did know him. I think he was probably recommended to him as being somebody who wins, somebody who gets great results. Well, yeah, he gets great results. How does he get those results? Because according to this article, according to other articles that we've read, he gets these results by sort of cheating. He gets these results by using social media, psychological warfare, by using other things to alter the outcome of the elections. And he seems to have an exceptionally close relationship to Dynology, a strategic partner to Dynology. Exceptionally close relationship to John McCain.
I never trusted John McCain for some reason, man.
Could he be that serious? Could he be talking that much out his ass? And is it so hard for you to believe that a politician would spend so much time hating on Putin's Russia, but yet still in the background do things and instruct things that support it quietly because you have a different agenda? Is that even possible?
That's certainly not any bit of integrity.
You have to. Have I shown you enough stuff right up here to say, hey, maybe it could? And remember what I said about
captured, okay?
Remember what I said about people in high level places? I got you queued up. You've queued up something. For me to with the testimony from
I have
Yates.
two things queued up for you. Sally Yates testifies on Russian interference in 2016 elections.
Mm-hmm.
That was back on the 8th of 3 days ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I also have Donald Trump left us a voicemail.
Is that the section that I told you to cue
exactly,
it up to?
of course.
Can you do that? Can you play that for me?
Sure, but first I want to play Donald Trump, President Trump, referring to his friend John McCain.
Okay.
I'm having a hard time locating it here. Here we go.
I like people that weren't captured, okay?
That's all I got.
John McCain.
I like people that weren't captured, okay?
I didn't really agree with that statement by Trump. But okay, here we go with Sally Yates testifying on Russian interference. You should have picked a better board op. Man, here we go.
Hard to try to ensure the safety of our communities and that those who violated our laws were held accountable. Over time, through 5 Republican and Democratic administrations, I assumed greater leadership positions within the department. In the U.S. Attorney's Office in Atlanta, I served as chief of the Fraud and Public Corruption Section, as first assistant United States Attorney, and then was appointed United States Attorney. And then I had the privilege of serving as Deputy Attorney General for a little over 2 years.
I don't think this is the spot.
And finally, the current administration asked me to stay
Let me
on as Acting Attorney
pause that.
General.
Right?
Throughout my time...
Pause that. Where we were going with this, right, was also with the one with Comey. Let me say something real quick about Yates, right? Imagine, and this is a scenario I guarantee you haven't thought about yet. Imagine if our NSA, right, wanted to. She was the acting AG at the time, assistant AG. Imagine if the NSA or the CIA had decided to use General Flynn as part of a very, very covert, highest level, presidential level sting to try to get to either turn someone in Russia, getting leverage on them, or trying to get evidence, let's say, that Putin had direct involvement in the election process, right? Mm-hmm. Let's throw out a scenario that, let's say that like the CIA or somebody ran the highest level, top secret op to try to do that using Flynn, right? That would be a really sort of interesting thing to do. You might be able to catch some bad guys in a situation like that, unless somebody like Yates came out and said, oh, look, he's been talking to the... There's a reason that there's a chain of command. There's a reason she should have never exposed or demanded or never exceeded her authority to go to the White House and warn them about that. Okay, or if you warn them about that, then you've done your job. Shut the hell up. Don't ask questions, because if they had been running an op like that, this lady, by going outside her bounds, could have destroyed it, could have ruined it, right? Just because she wanted to be a snowflake and was upset because Hillary is not president or something. And I really believe that's all that's about. Now, the other one that you were doing was the one with, I believe, Comey before his unseemly departure.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the...
Which I loved.
Was it 111.17?
I think so.
All right. Let me pull that up right now. There it is. It's exactly what it was. And Q. Cut 3. Come on.
It was 1,934. On several occasions during my 6.5 years as DNI, I requested the identity of U.S. persons to be revealed. In each such instance, I made these requests so I could fully understand the context of the communication and the potential threat being posed. At no time did I ever submit a request for personal or political purposes or to voyeuristically look at raw intelligence, nor am I aware of any instance of such abuse by anyone else.
Okay, stop.
Second is the issue of...
He just listed all the reasons why that would never be used, or he was not aware of it ever being used. But think about this, right? How do we know? What if somebody decides they want to listen to Zuckerberg's, or somebody very, not even Zuckerberg, somebody very high up in someone with administrative access in Facebook that could actually manipulate data in Facebook, right? And let's say somebody in this organization gets dirt on that person that would get them fired, divorced, ruin their life, and approach them and say, hey, do this for us, using all the power of Facebook or all the power of Twitter or all the whatever organization that they wanted to gain leverage over and
it could
control.
be down to the community level.
Right.
It
So
could be a municipal center,
once you get control of these people. So
VFW.
He listed a lot of things that sound just fine.
Yeah.
But I'm saying, okay, well, would you ever do this? These are things. These are reasons that you got to have so much oversight, and this oversight doesn't exist with this, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't exist. Okay.
You want me to play a little more of this?
No, totally cool with that, right?
Okay, yeah.
So, I mean, that was the purpose for that. Because he makes this point that, hey, we're not going to use this information for that. Now,
And I showed you how that tied into the election process, integrity of the election process. Social media and social media psychological warfare are going to absolutely jeopardize, already does, absolutely jeopardizes our democracy. Because if you jeopardize the integrity of the election process, you jeopardize the integrity of of our entire democracy. That's what I ran on in 2004. That's why I stood out in front of Publix, collected 2,312 petitions.
Signatures.
To get my name on the petitions. No, signatures.
I like signatures
petitions.
better.
That's why I did that, right?
Yeah.
And now, come around full circle in ways that I could have never, ever had planned.
No predictions. No way.
How could you ever...
Unless you're a
figure
wizard.
that potentially potentially that something you developed could have been used for something like that. And even if it wasn't, I hope everybody looks and listens to this and says, okay, this is an unhealthy relationship. It's part of it's part of the swamp. I'm no longer part of that system because I stood up against it. All right? I wanted to make a difference. I wouldn't let someone do something wrong. So I jeopardized my entire career, my entire life as a whistleblower when I knew, because I've been doing this like 8 years, I knew that if I stood my ground on this, I was going to lose my job. I thought the government would have my back. They didn't, right? That's all coming out in the book. But no, they didn't have my back. So we can fix this stuff. I've got to read tomorrow, and I hope you read tomorrow, what President Trump put out for the election integrity. I doubt it will.
After my mom makes me take my helmet off, I'll probably read for a little while tomorrow.
We need to see what that says,
okay.
right?
Yeah.
But it's absolutely imperative. And protecting people, good luck trying to figure out how to stop outside foreign influences from influencing our election process.
Thanks to you for pioneering the software,
allowing
them the
and
opportunity.
thanks to me to giving us the opportunity to step forward and give us the opportunity to say, hey, I don't know if any of that happened, right? I know everything exists that makes it potentially that it could have happened.
With everything that's going on in the media.
And you give me a better explanation
that's
of anything.
What I'm going
Nobody
with,
has an explanation
that's where I'm going
for
with
it, but I've given you a very legitimate one where I show you rock solid evidence.
I look outside and the black helicopters have been following me around. I'm locked out of all my emails. My cell phone doesn't work anymore. I turn the TV on and it only has news outlets. That's it. I can't watch sports anymore.
What kind of integrity? You look and say, well, how would they do that? How can I say that General Jones would do something like that? An esteemed career, right? Well, he did. He did. I've got screenshots of these websites that are government contracted websites. He did. While I was working in Tampa on government contracts, he was sitting in office as Obama's national security advisor. His son, I'm reporting directly to. All right, this is the swamp. We need to clean it up. I think we're running pretty much like 1 minute. How did I do tonight?
I thought you did great. A little nervous about, the usual things like black helicopters following me down on the way home.
It's compelling.
I guess.
And we need to make a difference. I wish, so often seems like everything I've done is for nothing because nobody seems to care. I swear to God,
nobody cares until you get Arkansas'd. Then everybody.
Then nobody cares. Look, nobody cares about Harambe. He was Arkansas'd.
How are we going to close the show out, Pat?
We're going to close the show by thanking you, thanking anybody who's listened, who shares this, who passes this along. If you have any questions, you can reach me at pfc40book@gmail.com. I am going to update my. I have I'll update information on my site to the blog that I've been working on, but I haven't been able to touch for a while. But I'm going to start working on that again now. So I'll put all this together on my blog site. I'll update it, upload it with Kevin's information, and get that to you.
At
Thanks
PFC40
again, everybody.
Book.com, at PFC40 on Twitter.
Looking out for you guys.
Freedom Stream. I guess we're out, huh?
We are out of here.
Oh, that's cool.
So, what?